What's up, everyone, and welcome to the weekly Q&A. Real quick, before questions, we need to send a shout out and a thank you to Joshua David Earhart, who joined our Patreon at the Jedi Master level. Thank you so much, Joshua. Also, you can see that Molly is wearing some sunglasses indoors, not just because she's cool, but she went to the eye doctor and had her pupils dilated.
Yeah, now instead of a big dark blur, I see a big light blur. For our first question, Leftist Hominid asks if the LEGO special confirms that the First Order survived after the Battle of Exegol.
I'm hesitant to say that the LEGO specials confirm anything, but that is something that I even pointed out in my review of Terrifying Tales, is that, yeah, okay, I mean, it makes sense that there would still be holdouts of the First Order after the Battle of Exegol. It's just like the Battle of Endor, really, is that, yeah, it was a crushing defeat and probably the beginning of a swift end, but there's still some First Order people around, I bet.
Yeah, there's always going to be baddies out there. And I mean, they don't make it clear who they're taking orders from or who they are working for exactly, but yeah, I mean, it makes sense. It's a little curious as to like why they're just attacking randomly.
I imagine it's probably something like we're seeing in The Mandalorian with just warlords, basically. People clamoring to, okay, we lost Snoke and we lost Kylo Ren and Pride and Hux. There's no one left in like a clear leadership position. So a bunch of different people are trying to grab for power, I assume. And that could be something that we deal with in the Rogue Squadron movie, because that's still up in the air about when that's going to take place. And it would allow them to kind of adapt maybe some stories or some scenarios from the X-Wing books into the post-Episode 9 era, where it's basically the same, in setup at least. But it seems like they can't quite do that in the original trilogy era. Maybe they can. I could see it going either way.
Jin Marie wants to know if the Rey reference from Terrifying Tales could be a hint at more Rey content coming up.
And that was the other thing that I brought up, that I was like, this might actually play into some canon. I'm not expecting them to really dive into this soon. I wouldn't mind it, but I do want to see that, okay, Rey is bringing on more and more students. She worked with Finn in the previous LEGO special, which is something that we wanted to see. And now we've got Dean, who Poe is bringing into the fold. So, like, all of these Force users might be coming out of the woodwork and they need help. And now Rey and probably a bunch of Force ghosts can come in and help out.
Yeah, I mean, I hope that's what this means. And it would be interesting if somewhere down the line we got like a little, kind of like a Freemaker Adventures, but with our main characters. And we did see Rey kind of training Finn and Dean a little bit.
It's interesting that it's happened now in both LEGO specials. That, yeah, I hadn't thought about that they might kind of keep doing that and explore that. That's been our biggest exploration into post-Episode 9 so far, are these LEGO specials.
Yeah.
So they might keep doing that. I don't think they're going to do it in a big way soon, within the next few years, just because we know a lot of the projects that are in the pipeline, but you never know. There could be some surprises.
Robert Bush asks why Bib Fortuna wound up taking Jabba's territory instead of another Hutt.
They do kind of cover this in the Aftermath trilogy, that the Hutts sent a Huttling that they were going to raise, and he would take Jabba's position. But then Cobb Vanth and his village basically got a hold of it, and they were going to use Malakili to raise him to be a better ruler. So that's kind of what the plan was. I don't think they're going to get into that at all in the Book of Boba Fett. I would be shocked if they do. But I was going to be shocked if Cobb Vanth showed up, so...
Yeah, I don't think they're going to show Bib's rise to power, which wasn't much of a rise, to be honest. I like the idea of Bib just being like, you know what, I've worked here for a long time, darn near all my life, and I'm sitting on the throne now.
I guess he just...
I'm in charge now.
I guess he just dove off of the sail barge. He probably saw things going south and just jumped off the other side that wasn't facing the Sarlacc, ran home, and was like, yeah, this is mine now.
Dibs.
Dibs for bibs. And so he got there. No Hutt showed up because Cobb Vanth wound up with him. Yeah. And then it seems like he just didn't really do anything with the power that he had. But we only got like a minute look at him in control. So, maybe he was some big, like, war lord of Tatooine.
Yeah. I mean, I guess he would be considered second in charge.
Yeah. Again, I don't think they're really gonna... I agree with you. I don't think they're gonna really get into what Bib did while he was in charge. We just saw that because it was kind of funny to see Boba Fett waltz in and take the throne in that way.
Damien Vonderhaar wants to know why Boba Fett is never called by his name in The Empire Strikes Back.
And Damien also asked, like, did they have the name for him at that point or not? And the answer is that they did, but it's just one of those things where we don't need to know it. So they didn't call him by that. I think it was better probably for the audience to just be like, bounty hunter. Remember, he's a bounty hunter. He's not part of the Empire. I think that gives us more context than calling him Boba Fett over and over.
Yeah, like when Han says it in Return of the Jedi, it's just like that one time, right?
It's really fast, yeah. Boba Fett.
Boba Fett, Boba Fett. And that's all that is there for, is to let us know that, like, Han knows who that is because he's blind. And so someone like Chewie is telling him, Boba Fett, the bounty hunter, is here. And, like, then Han is basically telling the audience that he knows who that is.
It's
but
also,
otherwise, we don't really need to know his name in the context of the films.
It's also that, like, maybe, like, Lando says they're giving Han to that bounty hunter. Vader calls him bounty hunter. So maybe it was just, like, especially when Lando and Leia are in a tense situation, we're like, we gotta save Han from the bounty hunter, instead of, like, we have to save Han from Boba Fett. And then Leia's like, who? And he's like, the bounty hunter. It's like, we're just trying to save some time here.
Yeah.
But yeah, they also just, didn't know that Boba Fett was going to explode in popularity. So it's just one of those things that it's weird to see what people latch on to. I mean, they should have known. He looks so dope. But
it's kind of like the opposite, or it's kind of like the ship, the Slave One. It's like, oh no, it's Boba Fett and the Slave One. In the what? Boba Fett's ship.
Right. Kind of, yeah, keep things simple, especially when things are first introduced. And you can learn the lore later. I mean, I've been going through, like, the Making of Star Wars book, for example, and I did not know the Dianoga was named from, like, the rough draft script. Like, Lucas wanted the Dianoga and in that movie, and he had a name for it, but he never put it in the movie.
Yeah, it's not just in the dialogue.
Yeah, it's just a sewer monster. But I think it's hilarious that he knew what a Dianoga was from the very first time he wrote down Star Wars.
Jared Sheehan asks, what would be the funniest or cutest Halloween costume for Grogu to wear in universe?
I think it's funny to put him in something that should be very big. So my first thought was a Wookiee costume. And then, of course, everyone would be like, oh, you're such an adorable little Ewok. And he'd probably be mad at that.
I still think, like, somehow making him tiny Mandalorian armor would be adorable.
Well, yeah, but that's not a costume. That's just, he's part of a clan of two.
Yeah, I guess. I guess that's a little more realistic.
But I agree.
Yeah. Maybe going as, like, a Wampa. Something big and, like,
furry.
Kind of, Wampas are supposed to be kind of scary,
so. He can be scary if he wants to.
Yeah.
That's whenever he's mistaken for something else, an Ewok, he just gets mad and, like, raises his hand up, and Din's like, no.
Mm-hmm.
That's it for our patron questions. If you're a patron and you didn't see your question answered here, just head over to Patreon, where we leave every submitted question a written response. If you're not a patron, you can learn more by following the link in the description. We have tons of other rewards, like audio commentaries for the films and every new Star Wars series premiering on Disney+. We also record video reactions to every new series as we watch them for the first time. We're doing book clubs to discuss every new Star Wars book as they release. We have behind-the-scenes content, comic reactions every Wednesday, and more. All of that is available right now on our Patreon if you're interested.
On to YouTube questions. Awakened Nighttime asks if we'll ever get to a point where Star Wars is like Greek mythology with different versions of stories that contradict each other and that's accepted.
I was going to say, like, we're kind of already there where we get these versions of stories and sometimes they are slightly different, but it's clearly not readily accepted by people.
Yeah.
I don't know. I think it depends on maybe the kind of medium. I mean, let's look at Lego, for example. Like, that's a silly, goofy version of the same universe. That's how I look at it. So, in a sense, we're already there, and people accept the Lego universe. It's more the stuff that is labeled, like, strictly canon. That's when things get a little more difficult.
Yeah, I feel like some fans have, and we have to a certain extent, what we call headcanon for certain things. And even people in the story group and people that like are working in Star Wars, they have a sense of headcanon for stuff. So I don't know if that counts as what they're talking about in this question.
No, I think they're talking about like when the Bad Batch comes out and it kind of contradicts the Kanan comic. That's kind of a Greek mythology thing. You know, things don't always line up. It's not like Greek mythology had a perfect continuity in canon. It was just people telling stories to explain their world. So can Star Wars be like that? Because it's supposed to be a modern day mythology.
Mm-hmm.
Sometimes I think it is, but, you know, people want it. I mean, I want it to be as canon. I don't know what word as accurate, continuous as possible.
Yeah, I think this is something that can work for the very casual fan. But anyone who is like really deep into the lore and in the universe, probably I don't think that would work for anyone who knows and appreciates the canon.
Yeah, and that's a good point, that a lot of people, you know, they just saw the Bad Batch, didn't read the comic, had no idea that there was any sort of contradiction. But, you know, I still am able to just, as much as I want it to be one way, I know it's not always going to be like that. So I try to like take the step back, see if it still works in broad strokes, which so far everything has. I bet at some point there will be something where I'm like, well, that's just irreconcilable. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there.
Kelp Babzar wants to know if we prefer seeing Star Wars as modern mythology or as a continuity.
So yeah, kind of building off of the same type of question. I do personally prefer it as a continuity. Like, in a perfect world, I would love it if every story lined up all the time.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. Although I really appreciate things like Visions and things like the Lego shorts, just because it puts a new spin on a franchise that we know and love, and it's kind of refreshing to get stuff like that sprinkled throughout things that are in the canon.
Right. And I think that is the way to do it. And maybe that's what Visions was kind of about, was this experiment to say, let's take a step out of the canon and just, tell different stories that are still set in Star Wars. We're still using a bunch of Star Wars things, but everyone's going into it with the knowledge that it's not going to have anything else to do with the timeline. And I think people were very accepting of that. So, yeah, I think it's just that there are kind of these different pockets of Star Wars. And there is one that is like the timeline. What do they call it in Loki? The sacred timeline.
The sacred timeline.
We have our sacred timeline, and then we also have things like, Lego, Visions, and probably more.
Joseph Simpson asks if Anakin changing Ahsoka's lightsabers is the same as what we saw happening in The Ninth Jedi.
Yeah, that came up a lot in the comments from our discussion last week about whether or not we'd ever see lightsabers change colors. And yeah, there are lots of canon examples of like Sith bleeding a crystal, or purifying one and making it white. Or yes, Anakin used the Force to tune Ahsoka's green crystals into blue. That's not really what we were talking about. We were talking about just, I hand my green lightsaber to Molly, and it turns red, obviously.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like a It's exactly like how a mood ring would work,
Right.
but like a lot more fine-tuned. And what Anakin did was, like you said, he forcefully used the Force to change the color.
Yeah, anytime we see that happen in canon, it's someone consciously being like, I'm going to change this lightsaber I'm going to bleed this lightsaber from blue to red. I'm going to purify this lightsaber from red to white. I'm going to, whatever Anakin did,
Yeah,
I'm
we
going
don't
to tune the screen lightsaber to blue. Like, it is a conscious decision to do that. Whereas in the Ninth Jedi, it's not. It's just, I'm angry today and it's red.
Mhm.
Oh, and like now I've calmed down and it went back to purple and whatever, like that.
Do we think that that's... Well, no, because Rey had like a completely new crystal, right? Or
As
do
far
we
as
know?
we know.
Because I was thinking maybe if... I guess that would be kind of rude to like bury those lightsabers, but have taken the crystal out of one of them.
Yeah, someone's like, I found a lightsaber and it doesn't work.
Yeah. Although, I don't know. We don't know if she took one or if she went out and got a new one at the local supermarket.
She went to Savvy's.
Yeah. What happens when you dip it in boiling water wants to know how the Imperial Inquisitors were assigned their names.
I assume there were tryouts of some kind. Honestly.
So, meaning like the seventh, like the numbers?
Yeah, 7th sister, 5th brother, 8th brother,
Mm-hmm.
Grand Inquisitor, 2nd sister, 9th sister.
I guess I just assumed that they went in order from whenever they were hired.
When they were recruited.
Recruited or hired, yeah.
It's possible. In my head, like, Palpatine is always a very, he wants to pit people against each other. I think he knew he had the Grand Inquisitor was just like this angry Jedi, and he's like, all right, you'll be in charge of them under Vader. But the rest of them, I feel like they may have been jockeying for position at some point. And I think at some point, I want to say the 5th brother says the 7th sister's name with like a little bit of venom, as in like, how dare you order me around, 7th sister?
Yeah.
I think he does that.
So that would maybe be a hint at some seniority.
Right. So yeah, I'm just assuming that there were chances to be promoted or demoted, depending on how things went on your missions, but we never saw that happen. So, I assume they all just died off pretty quick.
It could also be something like whatever their calendar year looks like. They only assigned one sister or brother per month, and then Palpatine numbered those months. But that's like way too convoluted, so probably not.
Well, it's interesting that like we see the 2nd sister die, and then we still have 5, 7, and 8 by the time of Star Wars Rebels. It's like they're scraping the bottom of the barrel. Why didn't they get promoted? No one got promoted into the Grand Inquisitor's position. Maybe by that time, Palpatine was just like, the Inquisitorius is done. We got most of the Jedi, so whatever.
Yeah.
That's all the time we have for questions today. If you want to leave a question for next week's video, just put it in the comments below or sign up for Patreon to join our weekly Q&A discussion and get a guaranteed answer. If you haven't already, please like this video, subscribe to the channel.
Follow us on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, and TikTok.
And as always, thanks for watching, and may the Force be with you.